All right, good evening, everybody. It's straight up 8 o'clock here in the East, and we are ready to start with our December Mastermind. Welcome, everybody. We're going to do a little bit different tonight. I've got two powerful brain research discoveries to share with you tonight. I don't know if it's because I didn't emphasize it a lot in the emails going out about the webinar, but two things. One, I didn't get any questions from anybody, so if you have some questions, go ahead and email them to me while we're going here for the next hour or so, and we'll try to squeeze them in and get them answered. And then the second thing is we have only about 60% is as many people as we normally have on the webinar, and I think that's probably because of the holidays. Makes sense to me. And that's okay, because we are recording this and we will be sending it out to everybody who has registered for the webinar. One of the first things we'll do is about the power of touch. The amazing power of touch, how that can increase your sales, increase your income. And then I'm going to throw in something extra here. One of the very first things I did way back, gosh, I think it was 12 years ago now, when the Ohio State Buckeyes first were in the national championship game for football. I wrote an article that was published on the internet, and my goodness, the doggone thing went viral, about how you should coach a team and how Ohio State's former coach, John Cooper, was not coaching that way based on brain science, and that how their new coach was and what a difference it made. I want to share that with you because it applies to more than just athletics, and of course it's real appropriate right now because this weekend are all the conference championship playoff games in football that the Buckeyes are still involved with, except that their second quarterback went down, so they'll be playing their game on Saturday with their third string quarterback. But you know what? It won't matter if they follow the dictates of brain science. I'll share that with you tonight. And then also we've got a couple big announcements, one of which I'm going to give you right now. It's not the biggest one. I'll save the biggest announcement till the end. If you joined us in our Marketing for Millions live seminar that we did in Orlando a couple weeks ago, you already know about the big announcement, but the rest of you, stay tuned for that. We'll have that near the end of the webinar. But one other announcement, we had that live Marketing for Millions seminar, one-day event in Orlando. We are now going to have one in Boca Raton or West Palm. It will be on January the 17th. That's a Saturday. Those of you that came to Orlando are certainly welcome to come down to Boca or West Palm. We haven't booked the hotel yet. That's why I'm bouncing back and forth, because we used hotels in both those cities, and they're real close. And that'll be an all-day event on a Saturday, January the 17th. And it's kind of well, those of you that have come to that live event, you know what it's like. It's tremendous. We cover a lot of things. We can't get it all done in one day to give you the brain research that can improve your income, and then all the things you can do to come up with money-making ideas and where you go when you get those ideas. But we can get you a lot of information if you join us at that Marketing for Millions seminar in Boca Raton on January 17th. And then we'll save the big announcement to the end. Don't forget my emails right there on your screen. At least I hope it's on your screen. Doug@brainapples.com. That's where you would send your questions. If you have questions tonight, just send them to Doug@brainapples, and we'll try to get them answered for you. All right. The first thing I want to talk about tonight, this arose, of course, I've studied it in all the brain research that we've read, and I've learned it from some of the brain research discoveries, and it kind of goes along with the statement you see on your screen: learn how your brain works and you can always make it work better. And what we're going to talk about here for a while is called the brain science of touch. It's an astounding thing that happens in the human brain when you touch someone. And when I'm talking about touch here, I mean physical touch, a non-offensive touch, a touch on the arm, a touch on the shoulder, a touch that's not even physical, where you're looking them in the eyes or you're communicating with them. You can touch someone in many, many different ways, and certain things happen in the brain when you touch someone. And if you learn about this, my goodness, when you learn about this, it is an extremely powerful tool that you can use if you are in sales or you are in marketing or you would like to add people to your MLM group, whatever it is. The power of touch, once you know how it works in your brain, can help you do that. It is a phenomenal power when used appropriately. And of course, this, like just about everything I talked about, is based on brain science research and how the human brain works. All of you, I think by now, know that I've been studying how the brain works for some 14 years now. And the things they've been finding out are phenomenal. And here's one little study I came across that just knocked me over and made me want to do more in-depth research about what this was. They did a study that showed that servers or waitresses or waiters that touched their customer casually, not offensively, during the process of taking their order and providing their meal, their tips went up an average of 32%. They received 32% higher tips. Now, the scientific basis for this is that they discovered when you touch someone either on the shoulder, on the arm, just by looking them in the eyes and repeating their name to them, or in various other ways it could be defined as a touch, when that occurs, two things happens in the brain. Number one, neurotransmitters are released across the synaptic gaps that are firing, and those neurotransmitters are called endorphins. You all, I think, probably have heard what endorphins do. They create a feeling of pleasure, a feeling of comfort, a feeling of trust, a feeling like you've known that person for quite some time. Do you see how this can affect tips subconsciously? Well, the same thing can occur if you don't have to be a server to utilize this. There are many ways you can utilize this. A second thing that happens in the brain, a hormone is released when there is touching. Anybody know what that hormone is? I thought I had a slide. I'm looking here and I don't have a slide that tells you what that is, but it's I almost said OxyContin. No. Oxytocin is released. That's a hormone. OxyContin is a pain-killing drug, I think, that releases oxytocin. But anyway, oxytocin inhibits pain, increases feelings of comfort and pleasure as well. Now, here's another study that was done. This is very, very interesting. of course, a lot of times when they're doing research, they use animals. And in particular rats, because rats' brains are very similar to human limbic systems in the brain. And when they do serious research, they usually will do what's called a mirror study, meaning they will do it in two different facilities, unrelated to each other. This particular study that I had been reading about in the brain research was done in Palo Alto, Stanford University, and it was, or maybe it was MIT. No, it was done at Stanford, and then the mirror study was done at MIT. They used the same facility to provide the rats. The rats all weighed the same in both studies, and what they were studying was the effect that an enriched environment had on the development of brain cells in young rats. The theory being that if they were in an enriched environment, an environment full of stimuli, positive stimuli, that probably, in theory, the brains of the rats in that enriched environment would be developed better at a young age than the brains of rats who were not in an enriched environment. In fact, one of the things the scientists have learned about human beings, I'm going to be talking about my brand new grandson here in a minute. When a child is born, for the first 18 months or so of their life, even up to 2 years, their brain goes through a process called pruning. Babies, you and I have about 100 billion brain cells in our brain. But when babies are born, they have upwards of 200 billion brain cells. But they go through a process called pruning where the brain will eliminate the brain cells that aren't quite as good as the others until they end up with about 100 billion pretty good ones. And if during that process they are in an enriched environment, so goes the theory, they would improve intellectually, achievement-wise, and in many health-wise and many other ways. That was the theory they wanted to test. And you see, the reason they do mirror studies is it gives, if the results in both facilities, following exactly the same pattern, exactly the same type of rats and everything, that if the results are the same, then that gives more credibility to the results. Well, guess what happened? When they did this study, the rats at MIT developed their brains 32% better than the rats in California. Now, I can make a joke here about California people, but I won't do that. They were shocked. How could that be? They followed exactly the same pattern at both facilities. Everything was the same. How in the world could they get different results? So they did it again. They did the same study again over several months, and it happened again. The rats at MIT developed 32% better. They could not understand what happened. They meticulously looked at every single step in the operation to see what the difference was, and then they discovered it. What they discovered was that when the maintenance people at MIT came in at night to clean the rat cages, while the rats were out of their cage, the maintenance people held the rat in their arm and stroked them, while the other maintenance people cleaned their cage. While at Stanford, while they were cleaning the rat's cage, they would simply put the rat in another cage without the 5 minutes or so of touch. Are you kidding me? The power of touch improved the brains of those rats at MIT by 32%. That's astounding. Now, here's, I got to dig under my computer here because I've got an article I want to tell you about. These are two premature sisters that were born, twins, of course, and they were born 12 weeks early. That's at 6 months they were born. In a standard medical practice, the doctors at the Medical Center of Massachusetts placed the twins in separate incubators in order to reduce the risk of, infection and stuff. The stronger twin, whose name was Carrie, began to gain weight and her condition improved, but her sister, Brielle, had trouble breathing. Brielle's oxygen level was extremely low, and she had difficulty gaining weight. Just about 3 weeks later after birth, her condition dropped to critical, and her tiny arms and legs turned blue as she lay gasping for air. Her heart rate skyrocketed, and her family watched in tears as they prepared for the possibility that she wouldn't make it. The medical staff there at the hospital tried just about everything to save the baby, but no remedy seemed to work. Then one of the nurses, her name, Gail Kasparian, she asked the parents for permission to do something which was generally against the hospital protocol, and that was to put Carrie in the same incubator as her struggling sister, Brielle. Now, in Europe, that's a very common practice with twins, but it's almost unheard of in our country in the hospital protocol. But as soon as she placed the two twins in the same incubator, Brielle moved closer to her sister, and her heart rate began to steady. Within a few minutes, her blood oxygen readings miraculously began to stabilize. As she started to fall asleep, her sister wrapped her arm around her, and her body temperature increased to normal. When the hospital released the twins, when they were both well enough to leave, the parents placed the twins in the same bed, and their condition continued to improve. Touch, hugging, release of endorphins, release of oxytocin, all of which improve the condition of this baby. Think how you and I can use this in our contact with prospects that we want to sell to. I don't have any notes on this. This is just anecdotal. I'm on Facebook quite a bit. I market some of my goods and services on Facebook. It's a wonderful means. And if you come to our Marketing for Millions in Boca Raton, we're going to talk about the power of Facebook if you have a product idea or a book idea. And I was on Facebook the other day, and a young woman in her 20s decided to start a hug clinic. This is out in Oregon, I think Portland, Oregon. She started a hug clinic. She advertised it on Facebook. It would cost $60 for 1 hour of spooning or hugging. No weird stuff here. Cameras in the rooms, da-da-da-da-da. Legitimate business. And in 2 months, she had 10,000 people signed up for a 1 hour hug session. Are you kidding me? The power of touch. Now, some of you may have heard me talk about this if you are a home builder here in Florida. This is a study that was done in conjunction with two of my least favorite universities, the University of Florida and the University of Michigan. Sorry, Brad, but I don't particularly like either one of those because I'm an Ohio State Buckeye and my youngest son is a Florida State Seminole. But what a wonderful construction school they have at UF and a wonderful medical school at the University of Michigan. And together they did a study with pool contractors. Have you heard about this? What they did is they trained a pool contractor how to repeat people's names back to them during their sales presentation and how to non-offensively touch them during their sales presentation. And they taught this to the contractors that they knew were going to be the highest bidders for people. And what happened was they researched where people had 3 contractors come in and give them a bid on building a pool for them and providing safety features and whatever other features they wanted. But the contractors who were going to give the highest bid were taught to repeat their customer's name back to them 8 to 12 times during the presentation, especially during the emotional parts of their presentation. If they had young toddler children, when they were talking about the safety of their pool, they especially would touch the arm of their customer once or twice and repeat their name back to them. And you see the results there on the screen. 72% of the time, the sale went to the highest bidder. So do you want to improve your sales 32 to 72%? Learn how your brain works, and it'll work better for you. How would you like to know? Let me tell you one other thing about this study, rather interesting. I was on an interview last night with a man and woman that have a website called the Science of Possibilities, and they were interviewing me for a seminar that they're going to be doing in January. I'll tell you more about that in an email down the road so you can listen in on to their seminars, because they've got some powerful people, kind of sort of including me, to talk about the science of possibilities. And I was telling the people on that interview about this study, about how the bid went 72% of the time to the highest bidder. And I was also telling them, and I'll tell you too, about when they interviewed the people, the customers afterwards, and asked them, why did you pick that bid? It was the highest bidder. Their answers were something like, well, I don't know why. I just felt like I had known them for a long time. They made me feel real comfortable. I felt like I could trust them. Do you see that? When oxytocin and neurotransmitters called endorphins are released, it mimics a feeling of pleasure, comfort, and trust. That's why they made those statements. So man, oh man, use this powerful tool to increase your sales chances. Now, those of you who were at our Marketing for Millions seminar in Orlando have seen this slide. This is a premature baby being born, actually a very risky birth. This baby boy was born short of 6 months. If you look closely, you see one hand in this picture that's not wearing a glove. That's the hand of my youngest son as he's cutting the umbilical cord of his son, Dayton, who was born 13 and a half weeks early. And his chances of survival were very low at that stage. He weighed 2 pounds 7 ounces, by the way. 2 pounds 7 ounces. And of course they placed him in an incubator by himself. He didn't have a twin sister. But my blessed daughter-in-law, Kelly, I've brainwashed her. That's probably the right term. I've brainwashed her and my son about the brain science research that I've learned and about the power of touch. And little Dayton Bench's oxygen rate was very poor. He had to receive something like 44% oxygen through a tube, which is way too much. A child, if they were taken off the tube, could not survive if they had to receive 44% oxygen through a tube. So on day 2, my daughter insisted that she be able to hold him next to her, and they said no. And she continued to insist that she be allowed to hold him. And on day 3, this is a picture that my son took. This is little Dayton with his big tubes laying on the chest of his mother. Touch. 12 minutes Kelly was allowed to hold him. Just 12 minutes. And in that 12-minute period, the hospital people were shocked because the percentage of oxygen that they had to put into Dayton dropped from 44% to 21%. He started producing more oxygen himself. You guys, the power of touch is phenomenal. There she is holding him again. There is my son touching him. Touch, touch, the power of touch. That's my beautiful daughter-in-law. And look at Dayton. He no longer has the tubes. When he was in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, NICU. Well, it wasn't very long till he started taking a bottle and growing. There's his grandpa Wayne, Kelly's dad, holding him in his, I might add, Florida State Seminole 90 pajamas. There he was at 3 months. That would have been, he was born in August 13th, September, October, November 13th. Now, he wasn't due, by the way, till Halloween. And here he is yesterday at 4 months, doing fine. Weighs about 11 pounds now. About 11 pounds. You guys, the power of touch is phenomenal. If you knew everything about how your brain works, you could generate money-making ideas, greater achievements, and a bigger bank account with the help of brain science. All right, I'm going to look over here, see if I got any questions yet, and then I'm going to tell you about how brain science helped Ohio State win the national championship in 2002, and how you can use it very, very powerfully with your employees if you have employees, or with your family if you have children, or any way if you apply this technique. Let me pause here for a second. I've got a question from Brad. Hi, Brad. Hi, Joni. With Teespring, how do they send T-shirts, and how do we market on Facebook when the T-shirt text varies, such as Ohio State is great, Columbus is great, Florida State is great, etc.? Oh, yeah, I remember the shirt you showed us at our Orlando Marketing for Millions about Toledo. What you do is, he's asking, how do you market different shirts? Well, you set up an account for each different shirt on Teespring, and they will ship them for you. And the way you market them on Facebook is and we're going to spend, with my big surprise that I have to tell you about, at the end of tonight's Mastermind, everybody, we're going to share with you and show you exactly how you, what's the fancy word, how you oh, I can't think of a fancy word, so I'll just say it the way I know how. How you can market your shirts on Facebook only to exactly the people who would be interested in that shirt. For example, Ohio State played Michigan last weekend, and one of the more popular shirts, well, one that I can repeat here on a recording, is it said "Beat Mich again," MICH-AGAIN. That was a very popular shirt. What you would do on Facebook, and once you go onto Google or onto YouTube and say, how do I target market for a t-shirt on Facebook, there will be hundreds probably of videos and pages that will tell you exactly how to do that. For example, you would not want to try to sell that t-shirt that says "Beat Michigan" to somebody who lives in Michigan. And you also probably wouldn't want to market it to somebody who lives in Nevada. You would only want it to market it to people who live in Ohio, and in particular maybe people who live within 100 miles of Columbus, Ohio, maybe. Or especially, and Facebook can tell you all of this, you can tell Facebook, I only want it marketed to people who are a fan of Ohio State Buckeyes. You see, Ohio State football has a Facebook fan page. Well, all the thousands of people that have liked that page are your exact target market for that shirt. And you can zero that down so you are only investing in money in advertising to exactly the people that would be interested in that particular shirt. All right, Brad, send me, well, I got your email. I'll send you an email. He also asked me who to contact about creating smartphone apps. You know, apps on the phone are huge right now. Well, we happen to have a contractor in Gainesville whose sister builds apps, and I also have a friend down in Tampa that builds apps. Brad, I'll pull out their contact information and send that to you in the morning. So that you have those contacts. And by the way, we probably, well, see, I'm giving away my big event already. At a future event we're going to have in March, we're going to have somebody there to talk about apps. One particular app, just, I mean, you can make a ton of money with apps. The one that I've got on my phone, I don't know if I mentioned this at our Marketing for Millions in Orlando, but a guy came up with an idea for an app that farts on a smartphone. You could walk by somebody and push a button and it'd make it sound like a fart, and they wouldn't know where it was coming from. Well, I laughed at that. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was silly. Well, it's not. It cost 99 cents. It cost him about $1,500 to have it built. And they sold 7 million of them. Do the math. And then he, what's the right word? Upgraded it or modified it, and so that you could record your own fart and push the button for that. That costs another couple of bucks. And he sold over 1 million of those. Holy cow. Apps are big. Apps are very big. All right. Thanks for that question. Thanks for that question. Let's see if I got any more here real quick, and then we'll give you a very important thing. If you coach young athletes, coach your own children, have to motivate your employees, it's about how you motivate people. Way back, I'm trying to remember the year, and I can't remember what year it was, but it was the first year a SPECT imaging scanner became available. I think it was about 1998. In fact, the very first SPECT imaging scanner, SPECT, single photon emission computer enhanced tomography, the very first one, believe it or not, was installed at the University of Florida. They have a very strong brain facility there at Shands Hospital in Gainesville, and a very famous neuroscientist was at the University of Florida at the time by the name of Fred Gage. Now, he's no longer at the University of Florida. He's out at the Jonas Salk Institute for Biological Studies in La Jolla, California, where about 20 of the world's leading neuroscientists are doing all their brain research. But a study he did at the very beginning, which seems almost primitive at this time, was they wired up a subject, a person, put them into the SPECT imaging scanner, and then read them some Greek mythology. They read them some Greek mythology. And they noticed then on the scan image on the computer what part of their brain lit up while they were being read the Greek mythology. And what they noticed was that the brain lit up in 6 different areas. Then they gave them a math problem to solve. They didn't quite understand why it lit up in 6 different areas. You know, the theory's always been that you do logical thinking in the left brain and creative thinking in the right brain. And Greek mythology is pretty much creative right brain activity, but 6 parts of the brain lit up. And then they gave them a math problem to solve, and the same thing happened. Dad burn it, 6 parts of the brain lit up. How can that be? We've thought for years that people solved math problems in their left brain. Deductive reasoning, logic. Well, they extended the research. And what they tried to do was, while they were performing math problems, they would give them a sedative drip that would eventually put them to sleep, and they wanted to see what happened in the brain. What happened was the spot that lit up on the left side of the brain where they were solving the math problem, that light went out, but the others stayed lit. Whoa! That proved that yes, you solve math problems in the left side of your brain, but your brain is constantly firing thoughts in 6 areas at once, and only one of them is conscious. The other 5 are at the non-conscious level. And when they discovered this, they went on to do a ton more research, and they found out several characteristics about these thoughts that were firing at the non-conscious level. Here are just a few, in all the little bit of time we have now, of those characteristics. Number 1, the impulses firing in your non-conscious brain fire up to 80 to 100 times faster than impulses firing through your conscious brain. Now, that's a doggone good thing, because, you know, if you're driving down a country road and a deer runs out in front of you, before you consciously are aware that's a deer, your non-conscious brain has already taken your foot off the gas and put it on the brake before you even know it's a deer. That's a good thing. Another characteristic of the non-conscious thoughts is that your non-conscious brain can't distinguish truth from a lie, real from imagined. Everything you send in to your non-conscious brain is taken as real and true. Man, oh man, oh man, is that important. Simplistic example, you have a toddler who wants a glass of milk. You pour him a glass of milk and say, Jimmy, I poured that glass really full. Don't spill the milk. Now, one of the other things they discovered is your brain sees in pictures and patterns and images. So when you tell your child not to spill the milk, 5/6 of his brain sees a picture of spilling the milk. So what are the odds if you tell your child, don't get in a cookie jar? What are the odds they're going to do it? 5 out of 6. If you have an employee and you tell them, don't point that nail gun at anyone, whatever it is, there's about a 5 out of 6 chance they're going to do exactly that, because their non-conscious brain believes that image that you send them. Now, let's relate this to the article I wrote about how Ohio State won the national championship based on brain science back in 02 or 03, whenever that was. My daughter lives in Dublin, Ohio, which is right outside of Columbus, and her husband is an Ohio State nut like I am. Buckeye nut, I guess. And he used to go down and watch practices sometimes. Wasn't very far, so he'd go down there and watch practice when we had a coach there named John Cooper. Now, John Cooper was a fantastic coach, but he could never beat Michigan. He was at Ohio State for 12 years, and he lost 9 times to Michigan. He won twice, and they tied once. What the crap is that? Well, just like they found out at Florida and Nebraska and wherever else they just fired their coach, if you don't win the big ones, you're probably not going to stay. Well, my son-in-law, Tim, went down the year that John Cooper was still there to watch practice the week of the Michigan game. And you know what? They had put a tarp up around the practice field so he couldn't watch. That was the only week they put a tarp up around the practice field so nobody could watch. I subsequently have talked to some of the players playing for John Cooper that year, and they said he totally changed the way he coached for the Michigan game. Really? Yes. All of a sudden, he wouldn't let us talk to the press. He was very stressed out. He was changing the plays from wide open plays to close to the chest plays. Do you see what was happening here? He changed. In the first 10 weeks of the season, he coached to win. In that week preparing for Michigan, he planted in the minds of all of the players, don't lose this game. He changed and coached not to lose. Don't spill the milk, Buckeyes. You see? When he was coaching for the Michigan game, he was coaching his team not to lose. If you tell somebody not to do something, 5, 6 of their brain sees do it. I interviewed Darryl Talley. Now, I don't know, my daddy played pro football years ago, so I'm kind of a football nut. But Darryl Talley was a phenomenally good linebacker for the Buffalo Bills in their glory days. Long ago. Trying to remember what year this game was, but I can't remember. But the Buffalo Bills played the Houston Oilers in one of the preliminary playoff games leading up to the Super Bowl. Very, very interesting game. Because at halftime, the score was 33 Houston, 3 Buffalo. And I wanted to interview Darryl Talley, and I wanted to interview somebody from Houston because I wanted to know what went on in the locker rooms at halftime. Because, you guys, in the second half, Houston started running plays not to lose, to protect their lead. So what are they telling their players? Don't lose this game. Don't spill the milk. Well, you can imagine what happened. The final score, I believe, was 35 Buffalo to 33 Houston. Never, ever coach yourself, coach your employees, coach your children not to lose. always coach them to win. Jimmy, I poured you a really full glass of milk, so hold it with 2 hands until you see the bottom of the glass. Not a thing negative in that. Not a thing negative in that picture whatsoever. So they're much less likely to spill the milk. Now, if you follow our Bankroll Your Brainpower system and our Mind Your Brain system, one of the things we teach you in there is how to develop affirmations or incantations so that you're involving your reticular activating system to recognize things automatically related to your goals. And one of the things we have to very carefully do in the formulation of our affirmations is make sure they are a positive positive and not a negative positive. You know, if you're trying to lose weight, you need to develop affirmations, but your affirmation should never be, don't overeat, don't take a second helping, don't drink soda with sugar. Your affirmation should be a positive positive. I put healthy things in my mouth. I only enjoy healthy foods. Excuse me. So they need to be a positive positive because of what you can learn about your brain. Very, very important. All right, I've got some more questions here. John Shoemaker asks, would you consider a handshake touching? Like when you're greeting people who come into a presentation or your office, you shake. I would not consider that a very significant touching, but I'll tell you something I do, John, because a handshake, you know, your brain can become kind of immune to certain things if you do them the same way every time. How about changing your handshake? How about shaking someone's hand and putting your other hand on top of their hand when you're shaking their hand? That I would consider a touching. Carrie, no, I don't think we're going to be able to have one of our Marketing for Millions in the Panhandle. If we do, it would probably only be as far as Tallahassee, but I can't guarantee that, although I sure like Tallahassee because that's where my youngest grandson lives. So that's a possibility sometime after the first of the year, but not clear out at Destin or Pensacola, unfortunately. I apologize for that. And Glenn Allen says, I've come up with some good t-shirt ideas, but which design would be best to promote? There's only one way to find out, and that's to test, Glenn. Spend a little bit of money on your Facebook ads, put a budget limit of something like $10 a day, try a particular ad for a particular shirt design for maybe 3 days, and then change it to another one for 3 days. So you might spend $30 for each one of those two, and whichever one does the best, go with that one. Or maybe even test a third one. But the absolute most important thing to do is test. I go back to the very beginning with my very first idea, which was that book on wedding vows. And back then, of course, we didn't have Facebook. That was in 2002. So what we did is we bought pay-per-click ads on Google, and Yahoo was big back then too. And I learned early on you've got to test. For example, on our Google pay-per-click ad, you would have a title, and then you would have maybe 100 characters in the body of your ad. And you've got to test both. But of course, back then, the most important thing to test was the wording of your title. Now with Facebook, your picture is very, very important, and your very, very short subject line, you got to modify it and test it. Back when I had that wedding vow book on Google, I remember my headline said, write your own beautiful wedding vows. I think it first said, write your own wedding vows. And then I added the word beautiful, and my sales went up. But not to where I wanted them to be. Then I went in and changed it from write your own beautiful wedding vows to write your own beautiful wedding vows tonight. Oh my gosh, Glenn, my sales almost doubled just by changing that one, well, adding one word. So you have got to test, test, test. But the beauty of Facebook advertising is you can limit your budget, so you can't go broke. You know, you could limit your budget to $5 a day or $10 a day or $15 a day and test it for maybe 3 to 6 days and change it up a little bit to see which works best. And that's one of the things we're going to go into depth on when our big event comes up, which is the big announcement that we have for tonight. All right, let's see. Carrie says Tallahassee is good. Well, that's terrific, Carrie. I hope it'll work out for you, and I hope we can get up there for you. All right, let me click off of these questions. I think I've answered all of those right now. All right. I have a big announcement about an event. Now, if you were at our Marketing for Millions in Orlando, you're aware of this. But the rest of you, I want to tell you about it, and those of you who are listening to the recording, I want to tell you about it as well. On March the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, we're going to have what's called the Brainpower Wealth Summit. It's a 3-day event in Orlando. 3 days of information about training your brain, marketing for millions on the internet, what's a good idea, what should you have with your website, what's a squeeze page, what's a lead page, how you can have your own internet radio show to make money. We are going to cover the gamut, how to use effectively social media such as YouTube and Facebook in depth, how to write and market a best-selling book without ever lifting up a pen. We're going to have, I already mentioned this, we're going to have, don't know how many yet or different categories, some experts there. We're going to have an expert there on websites. We're going to have an expert there on Facebook. We're going to have an expert there on apps. And one of the things that will occur in that 3-day event, that's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It'll be a Friday night. We'll start at like 6 o'clock Friday, go till 10 o'clock, and then all day Saturday, all day Sunday till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, so people can start traveling back home. But with that amount of time, we're going to give you all the information we can, how to become wealthy using your brain power. That'll be March 20th to the 22nd. And well, let me back up one. I didn't mention what that slide was. That's my log home up on a mountaintop in Colorado. And it's because I've learned how the brain works and marketed ideas based on how the brain works that I'm able to have a horse farm here in Marion County and that beautiful, huge log home in Colorado. Here's the view from our back deck, looking west towards the front range of the Rocky Mountains. Why am I showing you pictures of this? Well, I'll tell you all about it at that event in March, because if you come to that event in March, you will have the opportunity to come spend 5 days with us out at that ranch in Colorado. We will supply room and board. You just got to get the transportation to get out there. You fly into Denver. And 5 full days of training. Well, actually only 4 days of training. One day we're going to play. I'm going to withhold any information on that till later. Now, what is it? What is the investment in yourself to come to our event in Orlando in March, the Brainpower Summit? Well, if you go to this page, www.brainapples.com/summit.htm, write that down, you will see on that page everything we're going to cover at that event. And I will tell you that the cost of that event is $697 for up to 4 people. Whoops, I didn't mean to click off of that. 4 people for $697. That means you can split it 4 ways, or with 2 couples you can split it 2 ways. It's $697. But guess what? That's the price if you sign up in March. If you sign up now before the 10th of December, it's half of that. It's $347 for up to 4 people. So you can split it with 3 other people. You just, when you register, you just got to tell us the names of everybody that's coming. And right now, you don't even have to have the names of who you're going to bring and split it with. You just need to go and sign up so you can reserve that half price tuition. You guys, I go to seminars all the time. And if I go to a 3-day seminar, it usually costs $2,400, $2,900. This is a phenomenal opportunity because I'm on a mission as a legacy to my mother, who we lost to Alzheimer's disease, to help as many contractors, family members, loved ones, and other people to improve the performance of their brain so they reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and increase their income with money-making ideas based on the brain research. That's why we're doing it so inexpensively. It costs us a lot of money to book a hotel for 3 days and to stay at that hotel for the 3 nights. But that's okay. But if you want to get it for half the tuition cost, you got to go to this website now. Go sign up now and find the other 2 or 3 people later so you preserve the half price tuition investment in yourself. And you know what? I guarantee it. After the 3-day event, if you don't think you got your money's worth, I'll give it back to you. No questions asked. Yep, it's going to be that good. www.brainapples.com/summit.htm. Go there now. Get yourself signed up, and we'll help you to the moon and back. Improve the performance of your brain and bring you money-making ideas and how to take those ideas to market. 3 days. Friday evening, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, guest experts, in-depth information. We'll have probably 3 mastermind sessions within that 3 days. We'll also have some networking sessions and some brainstorming sessions. It'll be phenomenal. Everybody that's come to those in the past have come out with tremendous money-making ideas. I think we told you in the contractor CE classes, we're over 125, 130 people now that are making $10,000 a year or more, applying our Bankroll Your Brainpower system. Those that have that system that have come to our 3-day summit, they're the ones that are making $50,000 to $100,000 and more. I can't guarantee that for you. You know, the Federal Trade Commission won't let me guarantee that. But it's sure a good chance. All right, everybody, that's the amount of time we have this weekend. I want you to do something. I got some homework for you. If you love football, watch some of these championship games. I think they start tomorrow night. I think the Oregon-Arizona game is tomorrow night. See if any of these coaches are coaching not to lose in their big game. And I just bet you $1 to a donut if you recognize, they're in a prevent defense or they're not throwing long passes because they don't want to risk it. If you see that, I bet you that team loses the game. It happened to my Buckeyes when they played Florida for the national championship from the get-go. They were scared to death of Florida's speed, so they played not to lose. They got clobbered by the Gators. All right, everybody, I love you. Appreciate you being here. Send me an email with your comments about tonight's session, if you would. And if I don't talk to you before the holidays, I'll look for your orders, and I'll be sending you some email information. But if not, everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Have a tremendous holiday. I'm going to be sitting on that back deck if it's not snowing out in Colorado. We've got 18 family members coming for Christmas. Fantastic. You can have that too. Just learn how your brain works, and we'll help you make it work better and bring you more income. Been a pleasure, you guys. Good night, everybody.